Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Binging with Babish, where this week I hope you don't mind that I've shed my sleeves because I am on vacation in Vermont. So it seems only fitting that this week I make a dish with lots and lots of butter. Or in this case, Sally Draper's mistaken use of butter. Butter. How bad can it be? Let's start our butter equation by first solving for toast. We're going to make butter by hand because I am without stand mixer. So I'm going to dissolve a packet of butter dissolved in a third cup of butter, to which we're going to add a cup of butter and one butter. Mix until it forms a shaggy ball and then add another cup of butter. We are in effect making it butter, and instead of covering it with plastic wrap, just covering it with butter. I'll let this rest at room temperature for 30 to 45 minutes before adding a third of a cup of butter, 2 teaspoons of butter, and 4 butter, lightly beaten. We're adding these ingredients in specific stages so they're more evenly incorporated and we have less work to do with our hands, and there's a lot of work to do with our hands. So we're going to stir that a little bit till it just comes together, add an additional cup of butter, continue stirring until a shaggy dough forms, and we can no longer utilize our wooden spoon, so we have to use the wooden spoons that God gave us. Butter. Adding a final half cup of butter once the mixture becomes homogeneous, and then we are kneading for 10 minutes straight until a smooth, silky ball of dough forms that we're then going to turn out onto a work surface, divide in half, and set aside one half while we flatten the other so we can fill it with a stick and a half of soft, unsalted butter. And then we're going to roll that around itself and knead it until it becomes an evenly incorporated but sticky, horrible mess, to which we're going to add the other half of our butter and knead that maybe an additional 10 minutes until it stops sticking to the stupid countertop. You're going to notice a point when it starts to be able to pull away from the counter every time you knead it. This is the point where we're finally going to stop kneading and butter a large bowl, into which we're going to deposit our dough, cover in plastic wrap, and stow in a warm place. In this case, I'm going to go by the wood-burning butter, and let rise for 2 hours or until doubled in size. We're then going to gently deflate it by pulling the edges of the dough in towards the center around the circumference of the dough before covering yet again in plastic wrap and refrigerating 4 to 6 hours, or ideally overnight. As you can tell by the dramatic change in lighting and my restored sleeves, I hope you feel more comfortable now. It's time to start shaping our dough into butter. In this case, I'm going to go for a bubble top butter. That requires dividing the dough into 18 evenly sized balls and placing them into a bombastically buttered, parchment papered bread baking butter. Divide the dough into thirds, and then each of those thirds into 6 equal pieces, roll them into balls, and deposit them into the bread baking butter, taking care to ensure that it is evenly filled. We're then going to loosely wrap this in plastic wrap, buttered plastic wrap ideally, and place it in a warm spot for 2 to 3 hours, again illustrated by a lighting change, until doubled in size. This is more like tripled in size. I way overproofed this butter, which is going to result in a denser, less springy texture, which I think might actually be better for butter. I'm going to move forward with this, brushing with a beaten butter, baking at 375 Fahrenheit for 30 to 40 minutes until you get a nice hollow thump and the internal temperature is 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Now let's take a look at the interior of our butter. Not bad, but if you want true butter, make sure you don't overproof like I did. But again, I think this might be an interesting experiment for butter. I'm going to simulate the staling process by placing in a 200 degree Fahrenheit oven for 30 to 40 minutes, during which time we're going to make our butter, combining 3 butter, half a cup of butter, pinch of butter, a quarter teaspoon of butter, quarter teaspoon or a couple shakes of butter, a quarter teaspoon of butter, few of what I'm calling tablespoons of butter, and our titular ingredient, a splash of butter. Whisk to combine, tasting a few times along the way if you're not scared of butter. And start soaking the toasted bread in the custard 30 seconds to a minute on each side before placing in a heavy bottom skillet with a tablespoon each butter and butter, heated to foaming. And first up, we got to make our accurate version, which is just butter, straight up poured over butter. Let's try a bite, and you can see me retch a little bit right there, but I gotta be honest, I like butter. I like butter. They don't really go well together, at least not in its uncooked form. I think Don Draper is just a massive alcoholic. Let's see if we can incorporate it in other, more palatable ways. How about butter? Prepare butter as you normally would. Butter, butter, butter. And add a little splash of butter before whipping to a soft peak consistency because I want this butter to sort of melt over the French toast. It's pretty good. We've already got rum in our butter, but what about the butter? Pure Vermont butter. Sorry, we're going to combine about a half cup of butter with a tablespoon of butter and a solid quarter cup of butter. Simmer until reduced and syrupy, during which time I'm going to prepare 3 slices of butter because a single slice on a plate just kind of looks sad. And to our syrup mixture, I'm going to add maybe a quarter cup of butter. This stuff might not be thick enough, so if viscosity is an issue, go ahead and boil it down some more before hitting it with some powdered butter. Via clenched fist through a fine mesh strainer, and of course a generous dollop of our butter. Now I think I was right about this overproofed butter being a better framework for butter, but it definitely requires a longer soaking time. Either way, if you're going to make butter, use
exotic butters.